Okay, I wanted to talk about the popularity of Japan in general. With I wanted to talk about why. Why do people get into Japan so much? I've been in Japan myself. I've been into it for a long time since I was a kid, and yes, it was no different. I discovered anime very early on, and I discovered anime before Toonami, so that ages me. But yeah, there that is. But usually it's anime and video games that kind of start people off, right? But yeah, I mean, you're talking about like Megan the Stallion, being huge into Japan and anime, and other celebrities, and it's just everywhere. It's the number one. They say it's the number two country with soft power, which is pop culture power. Hard power would be like military power, but Japan's number two after America. If you're within America, maybe that's hard to tell, but I do believe that that's the case. America number one, Japan number two. And it's just like, why are there no other countries like this? Korea, a little bit with K-pop and K-dramas lately, but it still kind of feels like not quite the same amount. I feel like France used to kind of hold this position a little bit, especially within Europe. Like French, people liked French culture. People were Francophiles, they wanted to become Francophones, French speakers, and things like that. But it's just Japan. Japan overwhelmingly holds this place now, and I wanted to talk about why. So, the first reason I would say is I would call it the Boba Fett effect, and that is quite simply shit looks cool. Japan has good design aesthetic. I call it the Boba Fett effect because George Lucas is apparently on record asking people, like, why do you think people like Boba Fett so much? Like, he didn't quite get it. And it just boils down to that helmet is fucking cool. And his overall vibe for the longest time, and even now, was cool. He was mysterious, a lot more mysterious before Mandalorian, but, and, all the new stuff with Star Wars, but, that's how it is. So, yeah, I call it the Boba Fett effect. Their design choices, their aesthetics, it's just a lot of times much better, at least in many people's opinions, than what you see in the West. Or at least, maybe not better, but it's different and delightful enough to be something worth getting into. The next point is related. So I would say it's general craftsmanship. So the Japanese craftsmanship it relates to the Boba Fett stuff. It relates to their design choices and for that detail. I don't know, like, do people getting into anime these days even think like this? Because this is how I thought when I was a kid. I thought, because the anime I was getting into was Akira, it was Ghost in the Shell, it was Ninja Scroll, it was all of these, 90s movies, not even shows yet. It was just movies that were bloody and gory. On top of being bloody and gory, though, they were drawn so well. It was, if you go from The Simpsons or the Flintstones to Akira, it's a huge thing. And that was what melted my mind when I was a kid. It blew me away. And it's that, the animation's so smooth and detailed in Akira, like no one's really done that too much since then even. And Ghost in the Shell and all these, like, it was this attention to detail and this craftsmanship with animation. And it just felt like it was on another level, and it truly was, especially at that time. Maybe it still is, honestly. So I keyed into that, and I think a lot of people do. And I think the other thing, it was just a movement as well. Like, if you look at, like, the Thundercats intro, that is, the intro itself was done by a Japanese studio, and the movement is amazing. And I know there's a money difference there. They must put a lot more money into the intro and stuff like that. But still, it felt like, well, anime can go from, like, not moving at all that well, and they're just panning the camera, to amazing, incredible movement. Like, it's two extremes with anime. I'm talking about the extremes where it's very good. The Sakuga. It's called Sakuga, where they actually really focus on the on the movement of it. And to me, even as a kid, even when I was like 9 years old, I was like, that's way better than what I've known in the West, at least as far as movement and detail wise. So, and the other thing too was, you got to remember in the 90s when I was a kid, uh, Atari was gone, so there's no Atari systems anymore. They're gone. It's a memory, especially as a kid growing up. It's like an 80s thing. Don't know what that even was. NES, right? First Nintendo was our first one. Really, the elder millennial, our gaming experience generally starts with the first Nintendo. Japanese, and then it's Sega, and then it's Sony, and Microsoft shows up a little bit later, like 98, 99. So we've had, close to a decade as kids, which is a long time, where every single video game system is Japanese. Nintendo, Sega, Sony, right? So, and the other thing too is, even as a kid, started to realize there is quite a lot of, it just felt like the movement was better, especially in fighting games, which were big in the 90s, which I loved. The movement was a lot better, and smoother. It felt smoother in a video game. You could really notice that. Like if you play Flashback or, a boxing game made in the West or anything like that, it was very clunky controls, super clunky. Then you cut to Street Fighter, it's buttery smooth, completely smooth. It's just fucking unbelievable. So that was another reason. It was the craftsmanship with video games, essentially. And then the design aesthetics from anime and all that are brought over, and the craftsmanship with the music and the city pop and all that, it's all there. So I think, again, it all kind of points back to craftsmanship. Another weird one I would say is that I would call Japan pleasantly different. Like, they're as different as you can be from the West, pretty much, but still so pleasant. And then the other thing too is, they can be so different, but then go back around to being just the same as us again. It's how it feels to me. Especially as an American, they're so different, sushi, whatever, blah, 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 completely different history and language, but then they like baseball, and they play baseball differently, so I think all that's really interesting, and that's one reason why, especially as an American, I guess, with the baseball thing, that can be, I don't know, it's just, there's a degree of different, but very pleasant. Another thing, they're different, but very similar in some ways. So Japan's an island nation. It's always been like that. That was a bigger deal back in antiquity, right? And back in the day. So that's one reason why their culture is so different, is because they're more removed. I mean, the UK is an island nation, and they feel like they're very different from Europe, but they're like a canoe ride away from France. Whereas, I mean, yes, there is a part of Fukuoka that's pretty close to South Korea, but it's still, I would say, on average, a little bit farther away from South Korea than it is even than the UK is from France. But anyway, they're an island nation, so they're different. And I think them having, not just different now, they've always been different because they've been, geographically, secluded in some sense. And also they had Sakoku, which is 200 years of being, on their own and secluded, forcefully, a period of national isolationism, they call it, which is called Sakoku. The kanji is chain, and kuni, which is koku, which is chain and country. So Sakoku. So they had that for 200 years. America actually ended that. But anyway, I think that, plus them being an island nation from since the beginning, they just were different, and people like things that are different. So that's really what that is. Probably the geography of them being an island is kind of what made them special, at least in part. And this is maybe closing up the last one, but I think that with the martial arts and all that, and Japanese society and all that, I think that, this may be slightly controversial, but I think there's a part of American children that in America, and maybe in the West in general, that kind of grow up secretly wanting more structure, more discipline. And whenever they see that in Japan, that they have that. Oh, their discipline in martial arts is so awesome. Their society's so good. Look at the discipline, everybody. They bow even in the restaurants and all this. And I think that is a huge, that might be a reason also that people like Japan so much. And also, last thing, the tourism, it actually delivers. Japan's actually mostly what you want whenever you go there. It is amazing. It is worth it. So there that is. That's my reasons why I think Japan might be quite this popular.